Good morning. Commissioners, Chief Moore, Mr. Teefank, Madam Secretary, Mr. Assistant Inspector General Django Sibley, Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, February 6, 2024. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Suthers, Shields, Briggs, and Garcia are present, and we have a quorum. Mr. President.
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. The Police Commission is committed to ensuring equal access to its meetings. It is requested that individuals who require the services of a translator contact the board secretary no later than the day preceding the meeting. Whenever possible, a translator will be provided. Sign language interpreters, assistive listening devices, or other auxiliary aids and/or services may be provided upon request. To ensure availability, you're advised to make your request at least 72 hours prior to the meeting you wish to attend. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of speakers will be a speaker in the room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you're free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinions shall be deemed off-topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in several ways outlined on the agenda. Message for those attending the meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public the opportunity to be present at the meetings, hear the presentations, and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there is a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person are reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. While in the boardroom, members of the audience must be seated. Standing is not permitted. I would note that item number 3 on today's agenda, the closed session item, will be moved to tomorrow at 1 p.m. At this time, we will move to item number 1, the report of the Chief of Police, Chief Moore.
Commissioner President Dr. Suthers, good morning. Commissioner Vice President Shields, Commissioner Briggs, Commissioner Calante, and Commissioner Garcia, Mr. Inspector General, Mr. City Attorney. As I do each week, I'm going to report on city government events, snapshot on our crime picture and our personnel strength. As many Angelenos know, this last week has been a trying one, and one that has challenged us on very many fronts, particularly the storm impact, but also a number of special events that have been held. I want to thank the work of our people who have worked diligently through the course of this weekend and through today and going forward. In addition to the storm event, we had the President of the United States visited our city, and there was also a NASCAR event at the Coliseum, the Grammys this Sunday, as well as a pro-Palestinian protest that was titled "Shut It Down for Palestine," where there was a threat that attendees would make efforts to interrupt the Grammy celebration. All of these events required a substantial number of personnel to ensure that the safety of everyone involved was provided for. That included both regular duty personnel that were pulled from their existing assignments, as well as a number of personnel that were called in on an overtime basis. I also want to appreciate and call out the work of our senior staff. We've had a number of staff and command officers who've been filling a number of critical command positions to ensure that our people have clear instructions good situational awareness, and that the entire city family is working in a unified front to take on these various challenges. Regarding more information specifically to a couple of these events, on the storm impact, this historic storm that we experienced over the last 2 days that has continued into today and likely through tomorrow, we've seen 307 mudslides, 9 buildings that have been red tagged, 7 buildings that have been yellow tagged, and the department went in door to door on Sunday in the Shadow Hills area of the San Fernando Valley for 54 homes that were under mandatory evacuation. We have since that time provided for security for that evacuated neighborhood to ensure that there's no looting or other criminal activity there, as well as provided shelter, had uniformed personnel provided shelters that are providing for those that have been evacuated and others that are in need of shelter. Yesterday, we saw 150 residents within the Sun Valley Tiny Homes community that had to be moved to a shelter due to the flooding at that location. There are resources that are currently working to alleviate that flooding so that those individuals can come back to that location. The department continues to staff the EOC at a level 2, and we have seen over these last 3 days now 136 injury-related collisions that are directly tied to weather events. There was a peak of these collisions on Sunday. Fortunately, there's been no weather fatalities, either by traffic collision or otherwise, during this period. What we're asking the public is to be mindful of road conditions. They will continue to be a challenge we expect continued instances of mudslides and obstructions and including debris in our roadways. Also, to be mindful of traffic patterns and whenever possible in areas that are impacted by mud flows or other traffic obstructions, for them to avoid the area unless there's essential work or business that they have in those neighborhoods. Other event I want to talk about is garnered worldwide attention was instances of vandalism that occurred at the Oceanwide Towers located in downtown Los Angeles. The department became aware of a number of vandals that was occupying that abandoned facility, and despite security provisions that were around, including fencing, a number of individuals took to all floors and began committing acts of vandalism with graffiti through all the way to the very top. Officers responded to the location and were able to make a couple of arrests on the initial night of this discovery, as well as an effort to clear the building. We saw then Saturday morning, early Saturday morning hours, a shooting that occurred at that site. While we have not been able to identify any victims, we did recover a couple of shell casings that we do believe at least one individual was involved in some type of use of a firearm. Following that, we established a 24/7 uniform presence at the location that will continue until further notice. On Saturday, we also began clearing the building with the use of various technologies as well as uniformed personnel, and we had 25 to 30 individuals that fled the location. Again, there was an additional series of arrests of those that our officers took into custody for trespassing. And we're working closely with the mayor's office in arranging emergency repairs to the perimeter fencing and to secure the upper floors with barriers to keep the vandals out of that location. Last night, despite the presence of our officers, we had dozens of individuals on scooters and in cars circle the block attempting to enter the location yet again. The officers that were there were able to deter those efforts, and several individuals were detained and later released after being ran for wants and warrants. Again, I want to thank the mayor's office, building safety, LA Fire, all of the city family for its efforts to secure this abandoned facility so that it no longer can serve as a venue where such dangerous activities can occur. Lastly, in regards to the Grammys that occurred on Sunday night, there was a widely reported arrest of an individual whose name is Michael Render, who goes by the entertainment name of Killer Mike. During that event, we have a security guard at the Staples Arena that stated that she was pushed to the ground and injured as a result of Michael Render's actions. And she insisted upon a private person's arrest for a misdemeanor count of battery. Mr. Render was taken into custody. He was transported from the scene to Central Station where he was booked and then cited back to court at a future date. And the department's actions in this regard was to ensure that the rights of the individual who expressed the desire to make a private person's arrest were honored. It is state law that requires the department to take individuals into custody when a community member wishes a citizen or private person's arrest to take place for a misdemeanor count. Last, in regards to significant events, I want to report an officer-involved shooting that happened on the 3rd of February at about 2:30 in the afternoon in the 800 block of East 7th Street. There, on that date, Central Uniform officers responded to a radio call of an assault with a deadly weapon suspect in the 600 block of Town Avenue. The address of the East 700 is a more accurate description of where the actual business location was at. The comments of the call indicated the individual was under the influence and armed with a stick and threatening employees. Once officers arrived at the location, they met with the person reporting, who said that the individual had entered his business on the 4th floor of a warehouse, and the person reporting, told the individual to leave. The person reporting, who was in fear for their own safety, left the business and called 911 and advised the 911 operator that the suspect had access to sharp items and metal objects inside the business. Upon the officer's arrival and conversation with the person reporting this crime, that person signed a private person's arrest for trespassing and directed the officers to the 4th floor. Once on the 4th floor, the officers observed the individual inside the business. Now, this individual, while we've identified, the next of kin has not yet been identified, so I'm withholding his identity. He is a male, white, approximately 40 to 50 years of age. Once the officers observed the suspect inside the business and ordered him to exit with his hands up, the individual initially complied and then turned and charged towards the officers with a white object protruding from the bottom of his clenched right hand, which was held at chest level. The officers deployed a 40-millimeter less lethal launcher and 2 beanbag shotgun rounds towards the individual, which were ineffective. The individual continued to advance towards the officers with the object still clenched in his right hand. The individual grabbed one of the officers and a beanbag shotgun that she was holding. An officer-involved shooting occurred at this point. The individual was struck by gunfire and brought to the ground, where he was taken into custody without further incident. The officers rendered aid to the individual until the arrival of LA Fire personnel. He was transported to a nearby hospital, where he was later pronounced deceased. The object possessed by the suspect, which was believed to be a knife, according to the officer account, was later determined to be a white plastic fork. It was recovered at scene and was booked as evidence. No other community members were injured as a result of this incident. A supervisor who was with the officers when the incident occurred sustained a laceration to his right hand. It's unknown the source of that injury. He was treated for his injuries at a hospital and released. Force Investigation Division responded to the scene and will be investigating this incident. Additionally, the Department of Justice investigators from the Office of the California Attorney General, Division of Law Enforcement, assumed prosecuting oversight of this incident per Assembly Bill 1506. I've looked initially at the video of this event and have concerns relative to the actions of the officer involved in this officer-involved shooting. And while I will not make any decision on this at this preliminary stage, I recognize to the public that an individual armed with a white plastic fork presents or possesses.
Please allow the chief to give his report. Please allow the chief to give his report. Thank you. Please allow the chief to give his report.
So I think my point's been made, as yours has as well. Thank you. I'll now move over to crime. In regards to the, by the way, in regards to the officer-involved shootings, this represents a total of 3 officer-involved shootings year to date, and with 1 fatal. That is the same number as we had the same period last year, and our average is just under 3 in a 4-year average. In regards to crime,
Sir, you are disrupting the meeting. That's your first and only warning. Please allow the chief to give his report.
In regards to crime, we have a total of our officer-involved shootings, our crime pictures today is that we're essentially even with homicides at 27 year-to-date versus 27 last year. We have a 1.3% reduction in violent crime. That's 35 fewer violent crimes this year versus last. When we look at our robberies, that's an area of continued concern with nearly a 10% increase in robberies. This has primarily been in the southern part of the city and in the San Fernando Valley. In regards to property crime, we continue to see a nearly 12% reduction in property crime, with more than 1,100 fewer property crimes overall, we have a 9.6% reduction in Part 1 crime. In regards to our personnel strength, we stand at 8,966. That's 327 below our authorized strength. Our civilian workforce is at 2,618. That's 280 underneath our authorized strength. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Chief. Now to defer to my colleagues, Commissioner Kalanche, any questions or comments?
Thank you. Chief, I wanted to follow up on something from last week around the traffic accidents. And I know that you discussed some of the collisions happening as a result of the rain. And I saw the data on the traffic accidents, and wondering if there's any other data that's collected that could be insightful for us, such as, time of day for some of these accidents where there's fatalities, whether it's speeding, whether it's involving homeless individuals. Is that data collected as part of these accidents?
Yes, it is. And we have a ongoing systematic review of our traffic collisions with our CompStat inspections, as well as reports that identify the high injury network. These are the areas and stretches of roadway as well as intersections that see the instances of fatalities and injuries to individuals as a result from traffic collisions. The primary influencers on the increase in our fatals and in our injury are speed and distracted driving, and pedestrians being outside of the crosswalks or in areas of low light conditions and wearing dark clothing and being unseen by the motorists. These the efforts of, and he's here today, but he's not making a presentation on this topic, but Deputy Chief Donnie Graham, who oversees our Transit Services Bureau, and the efforts of Craig Valenzuela, the commander, are very available to discuss in greater detail the instances of where these collisions are occurring, what our enforcement, as well as our efforts with the city family for engineering and area changes that can help calm the influencers, slow people down, make people more aware of their surroundings, and to deter these instances. It's not just going to be enforcement alone. We're encouraged by the recent law that's establishing speed radar, for instance, as a pilot program here in Los Angeles to cite motorists that are exceeding the speed limit as an added enforcement tool. But this is going to require, I believe, continued efforts of changing the characteristics of our roadways and sidewalks and the interplay of pedestrians, cyclists, and our motoring public.
So can we get a memo, nothing, too involved, but a memo with these like trends and recommendations?
Absolutely.
Just so that we can follow up on it and maybe figure out how to get it to mayor, council, just so that we have some recommendations.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to forward a report. We've already got the work done on this, so we should have that to you within the next 4 weeks.
Perfect, thank you. I also want to acknowledge the openness, some may not agree, but the openness in bringing forth this issue with the OIS this weekend and just, being very transparent about the situation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you. Chief, can you give us a status report on preparations for the upcoming Super Bowl, World Cup, as well as Olympics in Los Angeles?
Yeah, yes, and this is, again, I would invite a topic of presentation to this commission. Commander Mo Mohammadi has taken charge of the special events group within the Counterterrorism Special Operations Bureau. This is ultimately the responsibility of Assistant Chief Blake Chow. And the ongoing efforts of planning for LA 28, which, by the way, just recently, this past Friday, Secretary Mayorkas signed from the Department of Homeland Security, designated the LA 28 Super Bowl as a national security event. It's another step in the direction of planning and preparation and the execution of resources to provide for the safety of what will be a historic Summer Games as well as Paralympics for LA 28. Within that also, ongoing plans this year with the mayor's office as well as other public safety representatives to travel to France to observe their last months of preparation and the Olympics in Paris for 24. And there's a host of other activities that are going on. As those activities are going on, sizing up the World Cup for 2026, as well as the recently announced Super Bowl for 2027. These are all charged within Commander Mohammadi's book of work, if you will, so that his annual work plan will cook a number of these with planning and organizing steps as the event gets closer. So obviously the 2028 is the largest of all those events. It's a Super Bowl a day for more than 2 weeks, if you will, at multiple venues. But these other events are lesser events, but still will require preparation, coordination with our public safety family for Southern California, as well as our federal partners, as well as the Office of Emergency Services for the state of California. Again, I think that a presentation to you with visual displays and articulation in greater detail would be helpful.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice President Shields.
Yes, thank you. I have a few questions. First, with regards to the officer-involved shooting involving the person possessing the white plastic fork. I too have not seen the video. I cannot prejudge this matter, but I have serious concerns about someone with a fork being shot at. And given the situation, is there tactics or trainings that can be told in advance of, like, is this someone that should have been treated as a barricaded suspect where more resources could have been used? Or just moving forward, what are officers being told how to try to avoid this while we still make a decision, down the road?
So there will be tomorrow my first, what we call a 72-hour briefing, where a collection of videos as well as the information that came from this radio call, what was told the officers by their initial accounts as well as witnesses at the scene, actions of the individual involved in this, and from that, we make that assessment. At this early juncture, he was not a barricaded suspect. He came out of a room that he was inside of. He was directed out, and as he was in a hallway, that's when these actions occurred that I've described. What we can learn from this is still to be determined. I don't want to project. I am concerned, as you are, as members of the public are, about an individual who has what turns out to be a white plastic fork. How is that person shot and later dies from that injury? And without passing judgment, I want to recognize that I share in those concerns. We will also be releasing to the public the name of this individual as soon as I'm assured that his next of kin has been notified. It may be in the public space, but I have a responsibility to the family to ensure, and to his next of kin, that I know that they're being notified. Secondly, the identity of the involved officer will be released, as is customary to our practice, after the 72-hour brief has been completed, absent any safety risk to him, to that individual. So there's more information that will come from this. This is an opportunity for me to give the preliminary information, to acknowledge what is obviously a concern, and to continue to commit to the public that as is responsible and as appropriate, we will provide as much information as we can.
Thank you, Chief. And you mentioned at the outset, the storm and all the significant events that happen just on a weekly basis in our city, and that can overwhelm any city, and understand that the men and women in the department on a daily basis do extraordinary work. I do want to focus on one of the incidences, though, that has garnered some, national attention, is the arrest of, the rap artist known as Killer Mike. I understand that this was in connection with a private citizen or private person arrest, And I want to understand, and maybe this is for a larger presentation, but I want to understand the level of discretion that is allowed in these types of situations, because frankly, I have a very hard time believing that Taylor Swift would have been treated in the same way. And I think that there can be, whether it's private citizens' bias or others' bias, that conscious or unconscious bias can play a role in these types of decisions. So I want to understand how the department ensures that the police will not be used in a way that can further the bias of other citizens, and ensure that the race of both the reporter or the alleged perpetrator is not a factor in any way. And I understand that, officers are kind of caught in a catch-22 situation where if they don't do a private citizen arrest, they can be, potentially charged with neglect of duty. But how do we balance that with some discretion where an arrest is probably not in the best
Well-
interest or the most reasonable approach?
So first of all, let me say that this arrest was in direct response to a security officer who was, her report, knocked to the ground and injured. The state of California requires that an officer who a community member requests a citizen's arrest for the department, the officer to take that person into custody, we're not making the arrest, but we're taking that person into custody. Regardless of race, if this was Taylor Swift, I will assure you that the actions of these officers are absolutely in response to the state law that requires it. Additionally,
Please allow the chief to respond. Thank you.
I recognize the statement or the inference that the race of this individual or the race, which I do not know, of the security guard that was knocked to the ground may be a factor. But in my conversation with Assistant Chief Choi, that through down to the community, to the incident level, was our concern that we would live by our responsibilities as law enforcement, but that we would also ensure this individual, absent any other reason, would be released and would be cited. And he was. And he was in spite of the fact that his prints did not come back, and there was an ability to hold him further. And I directed that for him to be released with a sight back. So every discretion, I believe at this juncture, was exercised. And I stand by our officers' actions on this, and I ask the public's assistance and help in understanding that this individual is alleged to have committed a battery in the sense of his zeal or his insistence that he be allowed to move throughout that location at some pace or speed. And he felt that, to my understanding of the allegation, is that he could knock a security guard to the ground to effect what he desired. In fairness to that security officer, despite the notoriety or individual's identity, we have a responsibility to also act fairly and unbiased regardless of the person's wealth or stature in regards to their community. And that was what happened here. To my knowledge, I have no information to the contrary. And respectfully, I ask that the officers be given the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you, Chief. No, and I understand that. I
Sir,
think it's
would
helpful.
you allow the commissioner to make a remark?
I think it would be helpful for the public to understand that this is a situation where state law is implicated and there isn't discretion offered by the officer. And, as news report, I have not seen any video, so I don't know, what the altercation involved. But obviously that those facts that you are articulating are not widely disclosed. And so I appreciate you providing that additional context. But I do think it's important to note that it is a state law that requires the officers to act in this way. One additional question that I had is relating to the graffiti on the skyscraper. And, to me, that raised a lot of concern about security generally. And, these were, if individuals were, dozens of individuals getting there to, potentially cause harm to the city, that raises significant security concerns. Is there any, and I appreciate that the department is putting on more resources there to help protect that building. Is there any expectation on, developers or owners to also make sure that the security of the buildings that they have built and abandoned are also taken into account?
Yes, our city attorney is currently working an abatement process with I'll say, the organization that is in control of that facility, of that unfinished skyscraper. Its condition, there are material breaches in the perimeter fencing. There is a lack of effective security at the location with both staffing.
Ma'am, please allow the chief to make his comment. Ma'am, I've given you your first and only warning to stop disrupting the meeting. If you continue to disrupt the meeting, you will be removed. Sorry, chief, please continue.
The city is,
Ma'am, I'm ordering you to leave the room. You're disrupting the meeting. You won't cease. You're leaving the room now. I'm ordering you to leave the room. I'm ordering you to leave the room. Sir, with the green jacket, cease and desist from disrupting the meeting.
so there are,
I'm ordering you to leave the room. Please continue, Chief.
so this is a location that I believe poses dangers to the community, both because of the deterioration of conditions inside, as well as the actions of people who are now inside that building or over the course of it. As I reported earlier in my remarks, we had dozens of people who attempted to re-enter that building today. This morning, I spoke yet again with the deputy mayor to urge us to move promptly with repairing that perimeter fence, as well as placing barriers so that people do not have access to the upper floors. Individuals that are in this building are seriously in jeopardy of losing their life because of the conditions within that building. Individuals inside that building could pose a risk to the surrounding public's safety. And while the department is not responsible for this building, our efforts since this incident has occurred is to try to mitigate this. This department did not create this circumstance, and this department is doing everything it can to allow the other parts of the city family to step forward and to take the necessary legal actions to ensure that that building does not pose an ongoing risk to the public, and that the blight that has now been placed here in the middle of downtown is addressed forthwith.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Garcia.
None, thank you.
Thank you. So, Chief, I'd like to return to the officer-involved shooting. So, as I believe the sequence of events went, we actually deployed less than lethal launcher, 40 millimeter, correct?
Yes, the matters occurred within a matter of a few seconds, included the 40 millimeter deployment as well as the use of a beanbag shotgun.
Okay. So, Chief, I'm not questioning, but I'm certainly concerned about the number of instances where it appears the 40 millimeter is resulting in an lethal force as a result of it not stopping the activity. What I'd like to know in a future report is how many times the 40's been deployed, resulting in a shooting. And what I'd also like to know, again, I refer to my top 5, if we have a top 5 agencies in the country that use the 40, how often that happens. I just want to know if this is a trend. Is this weapon now somewhat ineffective? Should we review it? Because I'm seeing instances, it seems increasingly, where officers are resorting to less than lethal and having to then go to lethal because the 40 is not doing what it's intended to do.
So we're happy, as a reminder, we'll be having our 2023 use of force report. That'll be before you, I believe, in the first week of March. This is a topic that we can prime the pump in the sense of have them ready to address. The instances, one of the concerns about the use of less lethal is that it's now considered an intermediate force option, is that the threshold of what level of immediate threat, what that means, is creating a very short gap between an instance that represents an immediate threat to an imminent threat, and that continuum is very compressed. So the ability and I've heard from supervisors and officers alike, that threshold is quote unquote too high, that's restricting the use, that an officer's ability to use one of those intermediate force options devices at a lesser threshold may have, in some instances, prevented situations from escalating to a use of deadly force. And so I think that this is a good area for conversation and topic, and fact-specific, I think, can help. In this instance, all this happened within, again, a few seconds. Now, again, not judging it at this point, but expressing serious concerns is, I think, warranted, and it can be part of a larger presentation. And we will include the use of that weapon system by other agencies and what type of experiences they have in regards to their situations that escalate to the use of deadly force.
Okay, thank you, Chief. We'll now move on to,
President Suthers, can I
of course,
ask a follow-up? Just so that I understand, Chief, when you say like a lesser threshold, that we have policies in place that prevent the use of the 40 until like certain things happen, right? So you're saying that if we provide more opportunity to use it, just so that I understand and the
So
public
let
understand.
me try to be clear on this. A previous standard was if a person was unsafe to approach, we could deploy an intermediate force option.
Okay,
That has now escalated because of an interpretation of court decisions that unsafe to approach is not a high enough of a threshold.
Got it.
The person has to pose an immediate threat of injury or death. And that can create a circumstance where you are at a level where a person's actions escalates, where you have that immediate threat, and then the imminent threat.
so we're almost waiting too late. It's almost too late by the time, in some circumstances, by the time we use less lethal, they're already possibly charging or.
Yes.
Or approaching. Okay,
And unfortunately, I recognize the public's expectation that these weapon systems stop people in their tracks. Gunfire does not stop people in their tracks, and these other systems have similar challenges. It's as one of the efforts of going to the TASER 10 was continue to explore weapon systems that give officers greater standoff distance and can be more effective in their deployment to stop the individual's actions from escalating further. And so the department is committed to not just understanding tactics and training, but also what equipment and what other options are available to deal with these turbulent situations where we do not see a person escalating to the use of deadly force. Lastly, every instance of the use of deadly force by this department has not been found in policy. And there are instances in which the officer's actions did fall short. And I'm not suggesting in this instance that is yet to be determined, but I also want to assure the public that when they see instances over the course of time, and they go, should not have occurred, is to follow up with the department's actions as we report each week to the outcome of these categorical use of force, because there are instances in which an officer's actions fall short, and it's not the policy, it's not the training, it's not the tactics, it's an officer falling short, and there is accountability in those instances.
yes, just to clarify, so the policy in place, is that our internal policy or is it a state policy?
It's currently a interpretation. It's the department's policy that this commission approved, I think, about 3 years ago,
Okay,
in response to an analysis of case law in regards to its fit with our intermediate force option threshold.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Briggs?
Thank you. Chief, I want to follow up on this line of questioning. What is the department's policy and/or training around what constitutes an immediate threat? I don't want to prejudge because this situation that just occurred. However, we must have some training in place where officers can discern whether or not when an individual is holding an object, it represents a danger to someone. And again, I don't want to prejudge, but a white object
If I can,
doesn't seem to meet the criteria of immediate threat. So what policies do we have in place around that, or training? And do we need to double our efforts on this?
so let me move away from this event and talk in more general terms in other cases that this commission has reviewed and I've provided recommendations to. An individual armed with an object, including a knife, that is standing in a store and is stoic and is there, unsafe to approach. An officer's use of an intermediate force option has been deemed as premature. Others would say that person's an immediate threat, that I can't walk up to that person and there's nothing to stop him from having an impulse and now running towards the officer. So previously, in unsafe to approach with a person who poses clenched fists, objects, hard objects or others, that would make an officer reasonably believe that he or she approached, that they would face a threat of violence, including physical harm, would allow the use of those intermediate force options. That has now changed, evolved about 4 years ago, we think it was, as we sit collectively thinking here together, where no, give that time, give that negotiation, give that efforts to not use force and to de-escalate it further where no force is used in order to take the person into custody. So that is, the training is provided. We're using the virtual reality system to talk about communications, planning, distance, cover, alternatives to not have to resort to any force. And again, I don't want to hang all this on the fact that issue is the cause of is what's a huge causal factor, but it is a significant one that shouldn't be ignored. It is one that, as you deliberate and contemplate this, is I would encourage us in Force Investigations and Critical Incident Review Division can come back with individual cases that have already been adjudicated that could offer the commission an alternative view, working with the city attorney's office in regards to its interpretation of case law and our ability to withstand scrutiny, not from a criminal standpoint, but from a civil liability standpoint. And so that's the kind of the horns of the dilemma here in part.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll now move on to agenda item number 2, public comment. Madam Secretary, please call the first speaker.
The first speaker, Andrew Gravener.
And starting off with the chief's report. The chief's report should be limited to 3 minutes in every meeting. If the chief's report exceeds 3 minutes, we should be able to match whatever time the chief takes. Seemed really hesitant today to admit that the object in the shooting was a white plastic fork. And you keep claiming that's a deadly weapon, a white plastic fork. You couldn't even, give someone a bruise with a white plastic fork. I mean, those things are cheap. They break easily. You bend them, it snaps. You never can kill anyone with a white plastic fork. Let's see. We have the consent agenda. We have mental health services. We need to get cops completely out of mental health. Let's see, we have item B, that is a bunch of donations. We have, let's see, this one has donations for fentanyl test kits. We're going to hear more reports about how, cops are overdosing on fentanyl by just, being in the proximity of fentanyl. You keep using that lie even though it's not true. That's not how it works. Fentanyl works. We have donations for the teenage indoctrination program. Let's see. Then we have more donations on item C. That's the 21. Let's see. We have. Let's see. We have donations for. Let's see. And if somewhere on here we have all kinds of donations for, massive equipment that's like $5 at the store. You have like a, let's see. Yeah, I think it is this item, 21. Like you have the flashlights that are like, every cell phone has a flashlight. But your donation on item E, donation E, is, let's see, where is it on here? But it's like a massive donation of flashlights. You see, you have the Metro contract on there. You ever gonna ask your cops why they keep violating the Metro contract by doing fare inspections without Metro security? Because they're not allowed to do that.
Next, we have caller ending 1264. Caller ending 1264, you're on.
Hello?
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
All of them.
3 minutes.
Chief, really concerned about this shooting that happened with this guy with the fork. I mean, I don't really know all the circumstances, but that just seems a little too extreme to me. And I hope that more information comes out about this situation. I also like to talk about, there was a kid supposedly that was in the river in the Pacoima Wash, and a dog. All those people in that area are selling drugs. Okay, I don't understand why those areas haven't been cleaned out, and I don't know if it's your jurisdiction that cleans them out or not. But they've been selling drugs there. The drug addicts have been vandalizing our parks in that area, breaking the locks because they're locked at night. Anytime you go to the bathroom in that area, which is very close to where the kids play, there's gang graffiti in the area where the kids play too, just so you know. There's smell of meth, marijuana, who knows what else. And then they shit on the floor. I mean, it's just a total disaster. So I don't know what you guys are doing about clearing that up. The next situation I want to talk about is when my phone got stolen from what I suspect was one of the vendors that was there. When your police go out there to investigate these people, because I had sent them out previously before my phone got stolen, and then after that my phone got stolen. So I don't know if they just kind of gave the impression that they didn't care, that probably they mentioned something like, oh, I don't care if you take his phone. Who knows? But I've had some situations with the police that make me believe that they're just working against me. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on. And I'm just going to leave it there for right now. So let some other people talk. Thank you.
Stinson Tolan Jr.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Bank of America and the assessors office and the mailroom and what's going on with the mailroom. They're taking people's property and stuff like that.
Sir, could you just pull the mic toward you a little bit closer? Thank you.
Thanks a lot for helping me, Chief Moore. And this got to be investigated because Bank of America is involved in that with my son. And mailing papers down to the assessor's office with no ID or nothing like that. And then you call all these people up and nobody don't want to help you. That's in my book I wrote. And went to everybody and called the district attorney up. Nobody don't answer the phone there. And the attorney general, the same way, they don't even answer the phone. So, this might help a lot of people too, I mean, I'm a senior citizen, and like, for instance, I worked at Santa Monica Police Station for 22 and a half years, and I got a lot of awards from there. And like, for instance, like my mother always told me, if you don't work, you don't eat. And, and everybody need to pray, and ask God to help them, and that's the way I look at life there. And like, for instance, and these people need to be investigated, the mailroom, the assessor's office, and it's completely wrong what they do, like, for instance, and no ID or showing or nothing like that, and then they're gonna do that to people like that. That's wrong. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I'll be 81 years old next year, July the 20th. And I had a twin brother. My twin brother told me to write that book, and I wrote that book. And all his information in my book too. I got more stuff in another book that he wrote. And I got all the paperwork and stuff. And later on, I'm gonna write another book about him. Because that's my twin brother. So he passed away at 79 years old. And it's all this world need a little bit more prayer and stuff like that. Get on their knees and do the honest work and help people out. That's what this world's all about. And nobody not using it. You know what I mean? Taking from other people, and it's wrong in doing that. So they should focus on that. And gotta bless everybody in here, and stop using other people to get ahead. And money's not all that important, not to me. The man upstairs is more important to me. And thanks a lot for Mr. Moore, Chief Moore, for helping. And they says you're a good chief in my book.
Thank you, sir.
And I hope, I can get an autograph from you and your Mr. Gilhart, so I can keep it in my book there.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you, and God bless you, Chief Moore. I don't care what nobody else will say about you, but I'm for you, okay?
Next, we have Betty Lay.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief report, agenda items, and public comment, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Well, first off, losing Chief Moore is going to be bittersweet. I do support him, and I support all the donations on the agenda items. And for public comment, I would like everyone to just get along, and we pray that our weather gets better. I mean, we've had enough rain forever. So with that, I want everyone to stay safe, stay healthy, stay warm, stay dry, and I yield the rest of my time.
The next speaker, Jonathan Foster.
Madam Secretary, how many comment cards do we have on item A? We
have 8 cards. Let's begin on item A if we could. We begin with Jonathan Foster,
No, the way
Michael
it used to be.
Novich, Hamid Khan,
The way it's supposed to be now.
Adam Smith, Jamie Garcia, Audrey George, and Akil Gopal. Mr. Foster, I believe you're first, sir.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
We do have 2 public comment cards. We have Mr. Herman, followed by Ted Hay. Thank you. We are now on item number 8, regular agenda items. We do have 1 public comment card. We have 1 more comment card. We have Ms. Thank you. We are now on item number 8C,
Hey, what's the
of the
8C?
latent fingerprint backlog. We do have 1 public comment card. We have no other comment cards.
Thank you.
We are now on item 8F,
8F.
Department's report dated September 4th, 2014, relative to the bias policing update. We have 3 public comment cards. We have
That's the way it's supposed to be today. Briggs. Errol. That's the way it's supposed to be today. So, let's see. Where do I start? I am a supporter of the police department, but I'm not a supporter of the police when they do the wrong thing. California Bar 218248. Rasha likes lies just like the chief. Do you accept the lies of the chief? So he got his $1.5 million, 1.2 million. I think it was only like $230,000 a year. Then he re-signed another contract. But what they did in January and in December, when they were talking about with KNX 1070 Demetrio, they were going to pick a chief. And then January, we're picking a chief. February, yeah, we're getting closer. March, yeah, we're doing hard work. April, we're doing hard work. May, we're getting close. June, we're going to tell you tomorrow. And then finally, they were lying the whole time. Do you like lies? With the toilet mayor, Eric the Toilet, they were lying to everybody. They already knew. He retires and he re-signs a contract for. They were lying to everybody. I would turn it up the radio, drive around my little car. I was like, man, they're going to pick a chief. I want to, what are they doing? And yet they were lying for 6 months. 6 months. They were just lying. They could have just said, look, we favor Mr. Moore, Officer Moore, but we've got 2 other candidates. They never said, they just said, we're picking a guy. We don't know who we're going to go with. The guy that was black from San Francisco, they didn't pick him. I know he's a kind of a good chief. Seems like a kind of a nice guy. With the lies, I can't even look at him. This doesn't mean that I'm perfect. I can't look at him. He just lied to me for 6 straight months with the media. I can't even look at the guy.
Next, we have Steve Rogers.
Hello?
Hi, you're on. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
First, this meeting really should be held in the evening like it was 2 weeks ago in Watts. That was a great time to have a meeting so that people could actually participate. I'm hoping that the people that participated in person at that meeting would continue to participate in person or virtually because all voices are important and all voices should be heard. Something that's missing from this meeting. One is the enforcement of 403 PC disturbing a public meeting. Okay, continually we hear this is the last warning and people are continually disrupting. I can't tell if it's the same people. I can only see the back of chairs, but I suspect that it is the usual suspects that are doing that. Let me use this phrase for today. Peace through strength. Peace through strength. What do I mean? Strength will provide peace. Weakness invites aggression, whether it's verbal or physical. What you have there in the meetings is verbal aggression against the police commission, the LAPD in general, and a violation of the rights of the people listening to this meeting or participating in this meeting. You must enforce the rules and the laws. Otherwise, they're just words on a piece of paper. I've said this many times, but it needs to be done. If you need a gavel, President, then get a gavel. Use the role and be a leader. You have a sergeant at arms, you have a chief of police. If you do not arrest someone for violation of 403 PC, basically, that's a neglect of duty. Do your job. As Mr. Williams said at the meeting in Watts, I hope that sentence is reverberating. Do your job. And that's part of your job. If you're not doing your job, how can we expect the officers in the field to do their job and to enforce the law? You set the example. Now, strength comes in many forms. It comes in physical forms, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. Being a police officer is a tough job. You have to hire people who are physically capable of handling situations like the one that's being discussed. A suspect coming at you with a plastic fork, the officer should be able to use hand-to-hand combat, martial arts techniques to disarm and take that person into custody. You're hiring people who are sometimes too small and not capable of doing the job physically, relying on less lethal, like tasers and beanbags and 40 millimeters that sometimes don't work or many times don't work. And then you have what happened in this case. Let's not prejudge. Let's wait for the facts. President Reagan, it's his birthday today. Peace through strength. God bless you all and stay safe.
The next speaker, Zach Sherwin.
Today is Rick Astley's birthday, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Chief, excuse me, Mr. Sibley, it's my public comment period. I'd like a few more seconds back. Chief, it's a deadly weapon suspect, and then the weapon is thought to be a stick, and then the issue is that the person had access to sharp objects inside the building. Then the cops think it's a knife. As we discussed, it turns out to be a white plastic fork. I'm just saying it all out so that it sounds to the room like it does to sit there and listen to this litany of absurdity that results in a man's death at the hands of a police force that has so much money and so much resources, and you cannot take this guy down without killing him. What did you want to acknowledge to the public when you were so rudely interrupted? What was the officer's name who shot him? Commissioner Kalanche, wow. Way to set the tone of hard-hitting questions by kicking things off on the topic of traffic collisions. And God forbid that you ask the chief for a memo that is too involved. Nothing too involved, you assured him. I mean, you're in charge of oversight. You could ask him for whatever you want. But no, you just assure him that he's not going to have to do too much work on that report, and then you go on to kiss his ass about transparency. God forbid you say anything like, quote, I'm concerned about this shooting, though when Commissioner Shields said that, you nodded emphatically and performatively. You, in your time to speak, just called it an OIS, really smashing that euphemism, and then you move right on to praising the chief for his openness. And then Briggs moves us to questions about the Super Bowl, really cutting to the heart of it all. Commissioner Garcia, no questions. What are you doing here? I believe the chief when he says that Killer Mike would be treated exactly the same as Taylor Swift. I mean, he answered emphatically and even seemed to take umbrage at the mere suggestion that there would be a difference, and that performance convinces me. Also, we know LAPD can't have been acting in a racist manner. They've never sustained a complaint of racially biased policing. It's literally impossible. At last week's meeting, one of my friends spent the entire meeting. She logged on at 9:30 a.m., spent the entire meeting waiting to speak, and never got called on. Why do you not make every effort to let the public speak? That audio montage that you got played for you before is the case that is the case of how it used to be. And now people log on the meeting, spend the entire time waiting to talk, and then that's it. Public comment ends. Who's this for? Commissioner Suthers, at the November 21st meeting, you told us you were going to look into the suspicious activity reporting program audit. Can we get a follow-up on that so we know it didn't slip through the cracks? For the record, I read this same talking point verbatim in my comments on December 5th, 19th, January 9th, and January 30th. I invite a response.
Thank you.
Next, we have P. Miller.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
Yes, all items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chief. The police Commission used to meet every quarter in a different bureau in the evenings. So thank you for reinstating those community meetings. You may wish to consider a little longer time for public comment, especially if you have a really large crowd showing up. Freedom of speech and discord is encouraged. However, moving forward, President Suthers, there must be enforcement of a code of conduct. No community member standing at the mic should be verbally assaulted when they take their time to come and speak with you. Want to commend some excellent speakers in South Bureau who reinforced the value of the youth programs, interventionists, the working partnerships trying to solve community challenges with legitimate resources, and yes, community policing. Community knows community policing works. There are a few with their own agenda that do not want it to work and will claim otherwise, but we know the truth in all the divisions. And a special thank you to the divisional senior lead officers. You are the ones who have built and led the way for community policing. Would strongly suggest to the newer commissioners periodic ride-alongs with officers in each bureau. Their perspective and their input is vital to you. Yes, people want more officers. It won't be easy, but 10,000 should be the goal. Qualified, not quota-driven. We support and appreciate our qualified officers. Chief Moore, thank you for your service. The intellect, the empathy, the vision, the requirements to lead is not a job for faint of heart. Over the past few years, you and the commissioners have endured challenges that most chiefs will not have to face. Additionally, commissioners, you have a political appointment, and it is not easy, but we need you to stand up and advise and take a stand when it comes to certain decisions and proposed laws that literally threaten the safety and well-being of community by handcuffing the officers, like SB 50. We know traffic stops result in some of the best confiscations of fentanyl and illegal guns, and who does not want that? The law-abiding citizens, small business owners, and families have all paid the price dearly over the past few years, and this foolishness needs to end. Thank you.
The next speaker is Megan.
I really appreciate the public comment given by the Sidewalk Project last week. I was dismayed and not at all surprised to hear that LAPD officers frequently harass and assault sex workers. It's not hard to believe. I've only been attending these meetings for a year and a half and have heard about sexual misconduct over and over and over again in every imaginable form. Harassment of female LAPD employees by their coworkers, by their bosses, stalking of subordinates, having sex with subordinates on the job, domestic assaults on each other, as well as members of the general public. Statutory rape, regular rape, and child rape are all incidents that happened or stories that broke in the last year. Thank you to the Sidewalk Project for doing the jobs of the police to provide community safety. Last Saturday, LAPD shot and killed their third victim of the year. His name is Jason McConney. He was 36 years old. He was holding a plastic fork. LAPD spokesperson Ruiz said any object can cause harm, so I don't know why you all are so surprised by this. The LAPD has shot people for holding cell phones, lipsticks, and bicycle parts, just off the top of my head. They kill people holding nothing. They kill people at a rate higher than any other police department in this country. This is Black History Month. It is beyond argument that the LAPD has a problem with racial bias. Your own data confirms it. It was recently highlighted by the Controller's Office in their Black History Month presentation to City Council. Black people are 8% of the population, but make up 22% of your stops and 26% of your arrests, and no racial bias complaints sustained. However, I do want to make the point that these statistics are not Black history. Those statistics are white history. Policing in this country is white history. It began with white men hired to catch Black enslaved people trying to run to freedom. Policing is and always has been about controlling and disenfranchising Black people, and all of you gleefully provide cover. Rasha, your comments today indicate that you know it, but what are you willing to do about it? Police brutality, racist policing is white history. Black history is resistance of that brutality. Black history is organizing and fighting for freedoms which ultimately benefit everyone. Thank you to Black Lives Matter, Stop LAPD Spying, and LA Can for their organizing, their freedom fighting, their sacrifices, and investment in our collective future.
Next, we have Rufus Jones. Rufus, you're on.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick to the point. I see they trying to pick us a chief, and I know that it's time for representation. And I'm very domestic. I live in 77, and we need a fella. We need somebody a Latino, because the city's all Latino. We used to be all black. Now we're minority. And so you gotta pick the right people. And why they're playing games by all means. So kind of pick the right Latino. And we had this fella Labreda, and he's a good man. He's solid. And so let's not play games. Tell the mayor, hey, you got to do the right thing.
The next speaker is Hamid Khan.
So, on the Tuesday community meeting in Watts, Russia Shields approached some of us and we started talking about, like, you know, just, and the gist of the conversation was that the commission listens to people. So now today you have the annual technology report on the agenda, and this whole formation of Special Order 11, under which was passed in August of 2022, was overwhelmingly rejected by the people of Los Angeles. Even the ACLU, which had originally sent a letter and provided a framework for community control over police surveillance, retracted that letter from the police commission saying that we don't want to have anything like this, like a Special Order 11. But there's a whole conspiracy that completely was overlooked, and here we are because of lies and manipulation, as somebody else was talking about. Here's an email. So LAPD brought in a police consultant from Oakland named Brian Hofer. Now, he's a police consultant who's offering these different frameworks of what this oversight could be. And this is really amusing. Here's an email, and this is all through public records, on September 9, 2021, from Randy Goddard, the LAPD commander and assistant commanding officer of information technology, asking Hofer that the chief of the police has asked that each of the group leaders request one community member that participated in the group's recommendation to be present with the group leader. And he says that we are asking you to represent the community of Los Angeles. Now, here's a police consultant that has been brought on by the police commission to provide them, but then he's been asked through the emails to represent the community as well, because they know that the whole community has overwhelmingly rejected this idea. Letter after letter, people spoke out about it. Community Coalition, ACLU, LA Can, Black Lives Matter, Youth Justice Coalition, over 36 organizations sent these letters, but this is how these things are manipulated. Are you going to investigate that, Russia Shields? Because this is exactly under which rule we are seeing this annual technology information report. This was a conspiracy, and we have a whole set of emails that Goddard even sends Hofer a press release, a police consultant, who is then paraded as a community member, asking him that he can look at the press release and if it meets the standards to be sent to the police, to the press, right? So that's the conspiracy that we are talking about, that we want you to investigate, and we have a whole set of emails and can bring those to your attention as well. We filed them through public records. About the murder of this gentleman, Jason, I don't want to mispronounce their name. I mean, we know it's the same tradition. Dale Garrett, Charlie Africa, Carlos Ocanio, and I'm only speaking about people who have been murdered by the LAPD in Skid Row, that these killing fields should continue on top of 6 a day that are dying people who are unhoused and homeless in Skid Row. And we're not talking about Keenan Anderson and the rest of the group of people that are keep getting murdered.
Thank you.
The next speaker, Matios Kadane.
My name is Matthias Kirana with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. I want to continue on Hamid's point about this technology audit, the surveillance technology audit. Again, it came about as a result of, the George Floyd uprising and people's calls to defund the police, to abolish the police. And as Hamid described, the LAPD and this board came out together and said, no, what we need is tech oversight. We need an oversight body to see the acquisition of surveillance tech. All these organizations came out against it, but of course the LAPD deputized this person, Brian Hofer, to be the community perspective in order to push this through, because it's something the LAPD wanted, right? It's something that helps facilitate the acquisition of technology. The first thing that came out of this tech oversight model was the robot dog, right? The Boston Dynamics quadruped unmanned vehicle. And we know that there were likely concurrent conversations with Boston Dynamics prior to this mechanism coming through that kind of facilitated them getting it. And so we look at this report now and we see the sheer presence of ALPRs, right? Throughout, like how ALPRs are used. We see all these narratives around ALPRs. And we have to think about the fact that concurrently, we're in the landscape right now, we have a state bill that seeks to stop pedestrians getting hit using ALPRs. We have this $15-something million grant from the state that the LAPD got a few weeks ago addressing organized retail theft that included ALPRs. And so we see another mission here to expand the acquisition and usage of ALPRs. And similarly, we see it being justified by a mechanism that the LAPD put through. We know kind of what the outcome of this technology is, right? We know that ALPRs were used to justify the targeting of a black ABC employee, right? For driving a stolen white van. Well, what the LAPD believed to be a stolen white van. And we know that black folks get pulled over in cars all the time claiming to be stolen, but LAPD was able to point to the data, to point to ALPRs and say, well, this is why we did it. It justified that racism. And we can expect that even more with any other technologies they acquire. We can see that these mechanisms just sanitize that. On the point about the shooting of a person in Skid Row with a white fork, and I just want to kind of reiterate that's what we're talking about here as we legitimize it through all these mechanics. I think it's so fucking stupid, Dr. Suthers, that you would bring up the potency of less than lethal weapons. That is a misnomer to begin with. These 40 millimeters have regulations that dictate you don't aim at the head, you don't aim at the spine, because they can kill people. So for you to suggest that they're not potent enough is ridiculous. We know Keenan Anderson was killed with tasers. These are not less than lethals, these are lethal devices. So when you bring up the potency of these devices after someone's been shot for having a white fork, it's ridiculous. Similarly, Commissioner Kalanche, when you kind of frame, this notion that, oh, maybe the mechanisms, the requirements aren't met for folks to use these less than lethals, and that's why they're just shooting people. Let's be clear. We're not talking about, the LAPD isn't checking the list saying, oh, we can use the...
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the next speaker.
The next speaker is Jason Reedy.
Okay, so on Saturday, LAPD murdered a man who had a white plastic fork in his right hand. A white plastic fork. Who was the officer that killed Jason McConney? To say that this killer's name will be released absent of any safety risk when the killer has proven themselves to be a safety risk to the public is absurd. The commission should be demanding the release of this body-worn video immediately, as well as the name of the pig who killed Jason. Likely you haven't released the name because they've likely killed other people in our community. In LAPD's first statement on this shooting on Twitter, there was no mention of the white plastic fork. In the news release you put out that somehow never made it onto any of your social media accounts, you mentioned that, quote, the suspect charged toward the officers with a white object protruding from the bottom of his clenched right hand, which was held at chest level. When fielding questions from the elite media on the armed with a stick narrative, Lieutenant Ruiz said any object can cause harm depending on how it's used. Tell me how that's the case with a white plastic fork. What's sickening is your media relations division knew that info, but has always used the tactic of concealing this fact from the elite media so that they wouldn't include it in their stories, as everyone, including this department, knows that in those first couple days after a shooting is when there are the most eyes on it. More, you also said that there was the same number of shootings and fatal shootings as last year, a blatant lie. You killed 2 people by this time last year. I don't know if you've forgotten Takar Smith and Oscar Leon Sanchez. Would you like to correct for the record? You were wrong, as always. Rasha, you referenced a state law that required the officers that arrested Killer Mike, you referenced a state law that required that The officers arrest Killer Mike for private citizens arrest. And Moore said that the LAPD will always arrest someone if a private citizen's arrest is completed. But that's an absolute lie, because we saw on January 6, 2021, right outside of LAPD headquarters, Belinda Nebo was arrested. Was assaulted by white supremacists and filed a private person's arrest with white supremacist and former Captain Rick Stabile right outside the LAPD headquarters. So that's a lie. When it's someone that was attacked by white supremacists outside of your headquarters, you did nothing. Again, I want to remind Killer Mike, probably one of the biggest supporters of police in the rap game, got arrested. That's a reminder to you, Errol and Briggs, that it doesn't matter who you are, LAPD will come after you if you are a black man. But wait, I'm being rude. Do you all still consider yourself black? Because it's hard to tell some days. And now, lastly, this fucking protecting property. You know, you have helicopters surrounding this abandoned high-rise building, and all because members of the public took an opportunity to beautify it. There's nothing being done in that building. Instead of you advocating for it to be housing or anything else, you guys are protecting this property for what reason? What is this building providing to Los Angeles outside of just sitting there empty while we have 6 people a day dying?
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
The final speaker, Donald Harden.
Not that they're all not white supremacists.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I would like to speak on a couple of agenda items and general comment. It seems that there's a problem that getting rid of the chief of police after he retires, that he's attached himself too much to the city and that they're going to send a lot of people in here to work and in case something goes bad or he needs to cover for himself, that he could come back and do that. One of them is Dee Dee Hirsch, Mental Health Services. That's part of their ring they have going on with their Boy Scouts. I need the chief of police before he leaves the city to reveal that $1 trillion of core stocks you're hiding. Go ahead and blame anybody that needs to be blamed. And blame yourself. About the building downtown, the problem with the building is the illegal real estate development. The real problem is people working in the city or the county trying to say somebody else owns it that doesn't. It's still a problem. I seen on the news Kevin De Leon's explaining how Oceanwide owns the building. And I doubt that's true. And this is all just a plot that graffiti is just a plot to figure out who owns it next. You haven't had the real owner in the building at all. Let's see. There's to be no more hiring by the chief of police, no placements. Also, a direction for the police commission. You're not to accept any appointments from the mayor or any political figures for the chief of police position. You guys aren't to accept any appointments by any politicians. You should pick a LA native person to do that. Traditionally, if I don't have a person in mind to use as a candidate for the chief of police, I would let the police commission fight over it and let you guys kill each other over it. Because there's no way the mayor's going to be allowed to place anybody in LAPD. That needs to be stopped absolutely. Traditionally, when I don't have a candidate for the chief of police, that you guys would fight to the death over it. So I don't have a candidate. There's a lot of problems here in the city. Too bad.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. We'll now move on to item 4 on the agenda, consent agenda items. Are any questions or comments from the commissioners on items 4A through D? Bruce? Seeing that there are no questions or comments on items 4A through D, I would move that we accept or approve the recommendation for board action. Is there a second?
Second.
We moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The commission will now recess for 10 minutes. We will return at 11:05 to take up item number 5 on the agenda. Thank you. The Board of Police Commissioners meeting will resume. We will now move on to item number 5, regular agenda items. Item A is Department's report by the LA County Metropolitan Transportation Authority Community Policing Plan Biannual Report. We have Deputy Chief Graham and Commander Cortez and your staff. We have enough seats?
No, but I'm only going to be up here for a second because it's today. I'm sure will please everybody. I am not going to present. I am simply here to introduce my incredible staff, who's the ones that actually make this all happen.
Chief Graham, could you introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, this is Deputy Chief Don Graham. I'm the commanding officer of Transit Services Bureau. And I want to introduce Commander Natalie Cortez, the commanding officer of Transit Services Group, and Alex Baez, the captain of Transit Services Division, and our talented staff of SLOs and community relations officers. With that, I will surrender my chair to.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Good morning. I'm Natalie Cortez, and I'm honored to be here today and highlight the work being done by the women and the men at Transit Services Division. First, thank you, President Suthers, for providing us the opportunity to discuss the unique community policing environment which encompasses MTA. I'd just like to provide a brief background of Transit Services. In 2017, the Los Angeles Police Department began policing over 70% of the MTA rail and bus system. Currently, we are contracted for 110 full-time personnel and 192 daily overtime personnel. Our original contract has been extended for 3 one-year extensions. We're in our first year. As to the safety of the system, which I will provide context to the community policing, in 2023, rail ridership increased by 17.1%, and bus ridership increased by 11.7%. There's been a decrease in both Part 1 and Part 2 crimes within the entire system. For instance, in 2022, it was 9.17 crimes for every 1 million riders. In 2023, it was 8.12 crimes for every million riders. So that's an overall reduction in 11.5. The ridership is going up and the system is becoming safer. I'd like to take a moment just to highlight a couple of 2023 statistics and really highlight the leadership of Captain Baez and his assistant CO, Lieutenant Matt Ensley. Their leadership has been a game changer, and I'd just like to provide a few stats. In 2023, we handled 11,910 calls for service. Most of them were handled by TSD on the rail, and the buses accounted for 5,291. In addition, we handled between citizen flag down and observations 7,730. We did over 500,000 tap card checks, 77,151 bus boardings. We made 4,101 arrests. And what I find very important and part of our partnership with MTA is we checked in 13,216 times with MTA employees, whether it's janitorial staff, security, ambassadors, to have conversations and make our presence known. I would now like to turn it over to Captain Baez, who will discuss and highlight a few of our community efforts before you'll hear from our senior lead officers. What we'd like to also, before our senior lead officers get up there, I do want to briefly introduce each one of them because they are so integral in community policing. If we could stand up all at once, we have Leslie Tadeo, Carlos Tovar, Cindy Corona, Ricardo Rodriguez, and Natalie Morales. This is our team, and we're very proud. They'll, and briefly after Alex is done, talk to you about why they chose to work at MTA and the impact they have on the community they serve. Alex, take it away.
Thank you, Commander, and good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chief. First of all, I'm Captain Alex Baez. I'm the Commanding Officer at Transit Services Division, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the Metropolitan Transportation Authority Community Policing Plan and the significant positive impact the officers are making within the transit system and our community. The officers at Transit Services Division have been working diligently with the MTA partners to ensure the safety not only of the riders, but of MTA employees as well. TSD officers have increased their presence on the rail and bus systems by taking a positive and proactive community policing posture. For instance, TSD has increased our tap checks inspections, as the commander discussed, in our efforts to reduce crime and increase ridership. The increase in tap card inspections has also improved the positive encounters officers are having with the community members. The increased level of engagement by our officers within the transit system highlights our presence and makes riders and the MTA employees feel safe and more secure. Officers collaborate with Metro Transit Security to bring attention to code of conduct issues that need to be addressed daily. Our recent and current community policing plan includes education, collaborative proactive policing, and a higher level of engagement. One example is in 2023, TSD officers were involved in 3,121 arrests in comparison to 748 in 2022, for a 317% increase. Our officers at TSD have significantly made their presence felt in the transit system, not only due to our proactive policing, but with our increased efforts in community engagement. We have integrated creative community events to bridge the gap between the police and our community. Our community policing plan includes hosting various events throughout the city to foster positive community engagement. Our senior lead officers have been at the forefront of many of the community engagement efforts, including attending what we call rap sessions at bus divisions throughout the city. These rap sessions are hosted by MTA bus divisions and are exclusively for MTA employees and law enforcement partners. These meetings serve as a positive outlet for MTA employees and operators to provide feedback and connect with our senior lead officers assigned to each of their assigned areas. These rap sessions are positively utilized to take employee feedback and improve the quality of service our transit division officers provide. Our senior lead officers bring back the feedback from the rap sessions back to our leadership team and implement change. Our senior lead officers also integrate the feedback when working with bus and rail lines and provide training to our officers who are assigned to these respective lines to meet the community's needs. Other events that we have hosted this year include the Indigenous Community Police Academy, the Christmas toy giveaway, our Hispanic Heritage Festival, Coffee with a Cop, rail safety pop-ups, USC safety task forces, Special Olympics Tip a Cop. I'm going to turn it over now to Sergeant Stephen Marin and our senior lead officers, who will discuss why they chose to work MTA and the impact that they have when hosting these types of events that I just discussed. Steve.
Good morning. I'm Sergeant Stephen Marin. I have just under 25 years on the job. And the reason why I chose to come to MTA is because it gave me a unique opportunity to work with officers from across the city. It's something that's not common working in a normal division, so that gives me a very unique opportunity. Working with the senior lead officers, it allows me to encompass more of the community members, work alongside them, and it gives me a great opportunity to work with this team to promote our leaders, our future department leaders. I'd like to discuss the Latin Indigenous Community Police Academy that we held last summer. This was a pioneering program and it placed a distinct emphasis on rail safety, addressing a critical aspect of public safety. It was the first academy of its kind in the nation. Okay, our initiative signifies a groundbreaking approach to community-oriented law enforcement. And the Indigenous segment of the academy held 54 graduates, proficient in 7 Indigenous languages, leveraging wireless translation headsets and skilled interpreters. Graduates are well-versed in Quiche, Canobal, Mixteco, Zapotec, Mayan, Azteca, and Quechua. In addition to that, we are currently in the process of hosting a 7-week program for the Native American community in a new Citizen Police Academy. This was created through a meeting which was established in response to the Feather Alert Bill, AB 1314, a legislative initiative by the CHP and designed to address the alarming number of Native American women and men reported missing nationwide. Notably, we've instituted the first LAPD Academy specifically tailored for Native Americans, marking a pioneering effort in the country. The 7-week program includes the participation of civic leaders, former federal judges, stakeholders from diverse Native American communities that are students in this academy. Our impact extends beyond national borders with inquiries and collaboration requests pouring in from Native American communities, Native American leaders, even reaching as far as Canada. This international outreach underscores the recognition and effectiveness of our groundbreaking endeavors in community policing. In addition, the San Bernardino Sheriffs have actively sought out our expertise to adopt the program, the conceptual framework we've pioneered for implementation within the Native American communities. And with that, I'd like to begin introducing our team.
I don't want to just take a moment. Under Sergeant Mirren's leadership, we have grown leaps and bounds, and we have all new SLOs, and he's continually taking the time. He truly is shaping the future of our organization, and I'm very proud to be able to work alongside him. We'd first like to hear from our SLOs, and Ms. Tadeo.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Tadeo. I've been with the department for approximately 10 years. Born and raised in the city of LA. Decided to become a transit SLO because I grew up right in the train system, the bus system, so I'm very familiar with this. And probably since I was born, it's the way my parents transported themselves. My mother is currently still right in the train system and the bus system. That's her way of transportation. Sorry, I'm a little nervous and stuff. But that's the way she her way of transportation. So to me, it's kind of a big, family kind of. That's where I grew up and stuff, and just bringing that quality of life and hearing everybody, their issues that they have and stuff, and how knowing that I could relate, knowing that I grew up in the system, knowing that I my mother still uses transportation and stuff. So I'm gonna highlight one of our things that is the USC Safety Task Force. So as you know, USC passes through one of our train system, which is the Expo line. As a USC task force, we usually do a monthly meeting, and it's basically based on USC personnel, Department of Public Safety, our Metro, Southwest Division, our South Traffic, our Internet Crimes Against Children, also the mobile AT&T, parent school ambassadors that USC has adopted in their system. What we do is we participate a lot of rail safety during school, before school with the kids, engage with them, provide, not only rail safety, but also help them out with, from school and to school, how to report certain incidents, like through the Transit Watch app. We build those relationships with the schools and the principals, along with the children, able to have that communication and be able to nurture in a positive way that law enforcement is out there in the the train system and in the metro system. We try to just have that open discussion with the parents of how what they could speak to their kids about, how they could ride the train and the bus in a safer way.
Thank you. Miss Natalie Morales. She's our newest SLO, our newest senior lead.
Good morning. I'm Senior Lead Officer Natalie Morales. I have 4 years on the job. Prior to becoming a police officer, I was a mental health clinician, and I worked throughout the city of Los Angeles. I chose to become a police officer because I was born and raised in Los Angeles as well, primarily Hollenbach Division. And I wanted to bring my experiences to help bridge the gap between community and policing, and also serve my community in the best way that I knew how. As a transit services officer, Again, I grew up in LA. I also took the trains. My family also took the trains. So being able to provide that safety and security for our riders is, I think, the most crucial thing to ensure that we continuously meet our community needs. I will touch base on the Special Olympics that we have been participating in. So LAPD's Transit Services Division has participated in multiple events to support the Special Olympics of Southern California. We at Transit Services understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we have taken creative approaches to engage the community and help fundraise. Some of the examples that we have of the events we have taken part of have been the plane pool, Cop on a Rooftop, and Tip a Cop. Throughout these events with our community, we have been able to raise over $10,000. The money that was raised by TSD and the community was then added as a collective contribution to LAPD's fundraising for the Special Olympics. We will continue to host these kinds of events under Sergeant Marin and with the help of our TSD partnerships so that we can also participate in fundraising and adding our collaborative contribution to the Special Olympics that will take place on June 8th. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Now we'll hear from Cindy Corona, who is also a Department Honor Guard.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Cindy Corona. Happy to be here. Very thankful to be chosen one of the senior lead officers from Transit Division. I also grew up in LA, and I also took the bus. And I want to say my uniqueness would be I haven't left the department in the sense of I grew up in the city, and I'm still here, and I'm still working towards the goal, right? What I'm going to be talking about is our Christmas event. It was our first one here at Transit Division last year. We intend to do it as well for this year, but we had a very successful 150 students from all the schools that are surrounding the transit system, and that was also very helpful for us to get in contact with geographical flows from different divisions, not just only us. And we were able to put this together because we also have units at our disposal at Transit Division. That is SPEW and HOPE, and then the other personnel that we have there, and the leadership that we have with the commander and our captain. We also elevated the experience for these children that also took a train ride with our captain, with our supervisors and ourselves, and gave them knowledge about the rail system and safety tips on enhancing the understanding of public transportation. These children were very happy. They received gifts, toys, knowledge, something that I would have loved to have when I was younger. So that's why we're here to represent and give that power and knowledge to these kids now that they're young, and we're able to give them that information.
Great job. I think Captain Baez liked the Santa Claus visit the most. Saw a lot of video out there.
Santa was on the train.
Yeah, Santa was on the train. Ricardo Rodriguez? Come on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ricardo Rodriguez, and I'm the newest senior lead officer of Transit Service Division. I have going on 16 years with the department, and I worked with various assignments in South Bureau. My last assignment was Southwest, so I had opportunity to work with different community members there. I worked patrol, juvenile detectives. So being out there, has prepared me to become a senior lead officer. And my goal as a senior lead officer is to enhance the safety of the ridership, because I know how important it is to the city and for the community who utilize the system on a daily basis. And what I'm going to talk about today is Coffee with a Cop events and pop-up safety events that we have throughout the city. I've been a part of one so far, but I'll talk a little bit of what it entails. So Coffee with a Cop is it's an event that we host to disseminate valuable safety tips and empower citizens and enhance their awareness of personal and public measures. Offers unique opportunity for active engagement, encouraging citizens to pose questions or voice their concerns fostering the constructive dialogue between law enforcement and the community. That's very important, not only to us, but to the department. We establish collaborative partnerships with business owners, stakeholders, in close proximity along the metro system, the bus, the trains. We implement proactive outreach initiatives to identify and support individuals in need, addressing the diverse challenges faced by the community members with a compassionate and responsive approach. It also delivers comprehensive information on both rail and bus service, ensuring accessibility to accurate and up-to-date details for the benefit of the community. And also enhance the promotion of the transit service app, which I also work, the lines. So I work, the Expo line, the Red Line. So being out there and showing the community members how to utilize that system, is very helpful. And that's something that I take pride in. And my goal as a senior lead officer is, like I said, to enhance the safety of the, for the community, and stand by our motto is like to serve and protect. That's my goal for.
Thank you, Ricardo. And last but not least, always smiling and always happy, Senior Lead Officer Tovar.
Good morning, everyone. Well, my name is Carlos Tovar. I too was born and raised in the city of Los Angeles within Wilshire and Southwest Division. One of the reasons why I became a police officer was because I grew up around different quality of life issues, and having police presence around my area where I grew up. Simple hello or someone giving me a sticker changed my perspective on police growing up. And that too is what I wanted to do to our youth as a police officer. Being a senior lead officer, not only do you take a proactive approach, but you're able to engage with the community, you're able to educate the community, and it's a rewarding feeling when you're riding the buses and trains and you see a smile on patrons' faces just because you're there. And a simple hello can change someone's perspective as it did mine on police. One reason why I chose to work here at Transit Services Division growing up, my only means of transportation was the transit system to go to work and to school because my parents didn't have a vehicle. So one event that I'll be speaking on is the Hispanic Heritage Festival at Union Station. We orchestrated a groundbreaking event at the iconic Union Station Ticket Concourse featuring a performance by the LAPD mariachi group known as Mariachi Los Servidores. This marked the inaugural occasion of its kind, blending cultural celebration with law enforcement outreach. It facilitated a platform for citizens to actively engage with our officers representing diverse entities, fostering open dialogue, addressing inquiries, and cultivating a foundation of trust. We forged collaborative partnerships with the LAPD SWAT, K-9, Mental Evaluation Unit, the LA County Sheriff's Department, Department of Mental Health, MTA, and the VA to extend support and benefits to veterans in need, emphasizing a unified commitment to community well-being. And forming these collaborative partnerships, we're able to essentially meet one another, not only in a work environment, but more on a personal basis, and understand that we all come from different backgrounds. But with that being said, we all can collaborate and work together as one. And this is just one of many events that we've been a part of, and we continue to strive to be a part of many more events and collaborate with different entities as well. Thank you. Excuse me.
Thank you, Carlos. We just want to turn it over real briefly to Steve Merin. He has a couple more thoughts.
I just wanted to share that I feel a lot of our success with these new events that are new, not only to transit services, but to the department. And as you've seen from the citizen community academies across the nation, they're first. But I think, our command has given us the ability to think outside the box and come up with innovative ideas. And I think, our Captain Baez has been a driving force behind that. He's brought over ideas that were successful in other areas that he's commanded, and that gives us an opportunity to work and have success in our endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Captain, would you like to say a few words?
So just want to thank my team here today. They've been outstanding. They've done some fantastic work. And publicly, I want to thank Chief Graham and Commander Cortez, who have given me a lot of latitude to do a lot of the things that have been definitely a culture change at Transit Services Division from where we were a year ago. We've enjoyed a lot of success, and it's been due to the leadership and the latitude that they've allowed for us to do, and the hard work that the men and women there are doing daily. So thank you.
That concludes our presentation. If there's any questions.
Okay, Commander, thank you very much. And on behalf of the commission, thank all of you for your hard work and your innovative approach to policing and making the transit system more safe. I'm really encouraged to see so many officers, in fact, all the SLOs, born and raised in the city, serving the city, giving back to the communities that they grew up in, and that's very encouraging. So I have only one question I'll ask at the end, but I'm going to defer to my fellow commissioners here and ask if they have any comments or questions. Vice President Shields?
Thank you. I don't have a question, just a comment. One, it was wonderful to hear about all the programming and the changes happening at MTA to make the transit system more safe for all the individuals who really rely on this as their sole form of transportation. But even more impactful for me was hearing your stories. I only get to hear some of them, like at graduations. And, hopefully it highlighted for me and hopefully highlighted to the public that the women and men in uniform are part of the community that the department is there to protect and serve. And so you represent the department so well. So thank you for sharing your stories and really, the love for the city and the love to give back to the community, which is kind of the fabric of the department, shine through your presentation. So thank you, Deputy Chief. Thank you, Commander, Captain, Sergeant, for your leadership to empower all of the senior lead officers to share their story here today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Garcia?
Yeah, thank you as well. We appreciate all the work that you all do, and congratulations on not only doing it, but today showing the passion that you have for the work and for the department and for the city. And I really appreciate you all sharing your stories about not only being there to serve now, but having been users and growing up in that space. And I think that really gets to the point of the culture shift, of the culture change, when folks who are protecting or serving the space are culturally competent and culturally familiar and even emotionally connected to that space. I think it really shows, and you all are an example of that. And to the leadership, thank you all for allowing for the creativity and for that culture change and the appropriateness of that culture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Calanche?
Thank you so much for everything that you do. I'm a big believer in community engagement, so I'm glad to see senior lead officers working the transit lines. I have two questions. One is, how is the senior lead program connecting to the officers that are working, like the regular shifts, the overtime shifts? Because it's really important that it's not just the senior lead officers and their sergeant that are embodying these community engagement values and principles, but how are you engaging the officers that are just there like for a shift in the work that you're doing? So that's one question. The second question is just kind of for my own, like, kind of just understanding, like, what would you say is like the top issue on the transit line that you are like really committed to like working on?
I'm going to turn it over to the senior lead.
Sure.
Yes. Senior Lead Tovar to talk about how he works with that, because he actually used to work overtime on the line and then became our senior lead.
Awesome.
So I still work on the lines, and one important thing is actually engaging with the officers who are working these lines. Each line is unique, as if each one has different quality of life issues. So each of us is assigned a line or either a bus division. So with that being said, I like to work the line I'm assigned to, and I'm able to communicate with the officers the quality of life concerns that I'm experiencing throughout that line. And throughout roll calls, we're able to speak to all officers working that line assignment and discuss with them the quality of life issues and some of the issues that I'm experiencing, so they can address those quality of life issues as well. And not only do we do that, but we also go to LAPD roll calls. Not only in the mornings, we go through the mid watches, graveyards, morning watches, and we explain to them what we do as senior lead officers. We provide them our contact information, and they too, the officers in roll calls, are able to contact us easily, opposed to just an email. They can send us a message, oh, I'm working here, these are the problems I observed today, and some of these problems we can address on our next working day. But with that being said, we work closely with specialized units throughout LAPD divisions, such as the narcotics unit, special problems unit, the gang enforcement detail, and other senior lead officers. And we're able to spread that information to everybody and address those quality of life issues, because the same concerns that are being starting on the transit system are going out to the public streets, and the same public concerns that are on the public streets go into the transit system. So we're able to work together to address those concerns. And may I ask what the second question was?
Actually, I just have a follow-up that's kind of connected maybe to the, so are all the senior leads on the transit division, do you guys have Sarah projects as well?
Yes, they all have Sarah
So that
projects.
could be the answer to some of the second question was like, what are some of the issues that the top issues on the lines?
Go ahead, Captain Myers.
So, first of all, ma'am, on the first question, the senior lead officers also created a video that is played at all the roll calls, explaining a lot of the procedures, different challenges that we have in the system, and that is played at roll calls when they attend the roll call for consistency, to make sure that we're sending the same message all the time. Each of them are assigned, like they said, to a line, meaning they're assigned to a specific line, and each of them have Sarah projects within those lines. And obviously, they're different depending on what lines we're discussing. But you asked overall, I mean, access is the biggest problem we have on the system. Just the access to the system, meaning people who are getting on without paying fares and just not supposed to be there. We find that, close to over 90% of people involved in crimes did not have access, should not have had access to be on the line to begin with. So that is an issue, and obviously the same issue throughout the city is the unhoused. So the unhoused are there. We work in a multi-layered approach. We work with different entities within the MTA to try to address that. We do have our own HOPE unit, but it's a challenge as it is throughout the city, and it's a continuous challenge for us that we're trying to address daily.
I've only been on a couple of the lines, but I know like I've used the gold line, and it's all like there's no like turnstiles. It's kind of like honor system. Is that part of the challenge?
Yeah, yes, it is part of the challenge. It is a challenge, and one that we continually have ongoing discussions with MTA about, trying to secure it a little bit more, trying to make people understand that you do need to pay prior to accessing the system. So we have those ongoing conversations, and with our new multi-layered approach, we'll start it earlier this year, TSOs, LAPD, ambassadors, and the team approach we have out there, we're seeing that the fares are going up. The revenue of the fare is going up, as well as the ridership. So it's working. We just would like a little bit more, like you said, on that access and not being able to get in.
And if I could ask one more question, this is really important to me as an advocate for young people. Do you feel like young people across the city are really like using, the transportation system? Because for me, it's like if you grow up on the east side, you kind of stay on the east side, right? You don't ever go to the beach, or you don't go ever, to other parts of the city. So I would love young people to use our transportation system, but I'm just wondering if you see that they are taking advantage of like the system.
I know I promised to stay off the mic, but so last year MTA initiated a program where they went through the Los Angeles Unified School District and offered TAP cards with free rides on them. I think it was last summer they celebrated their 10 millionth ride, utilizing that program. And we continue to, part of what the USC task force is to focus on student safety on the lines and provide both the students who are using the lines and the parents who send their kids on those lines to go to school every day on there with the confidence that, number one, we're there, how to contact us, but also what actions they can take while they're using the transportation system to be friendly. So I think that the MTA does a great job in outreaching to the youth. That's just one of a multitude of programs. They have another program called Life, where you can sign up and you meet with an MTA counselor who does a quick analysis about your accessibility to the transportation system. And then they, based upon their internal criteria, they will issue you a tap card and a certain number of rides per month that it's based on your ability to access the system. So that's one of many programs, and we are supportive of all of that, not just in our participation in their task forces, but also in our messaging and our day-to-day interactions with the community.
Wonderful. I think the messaging would be super important to get parents to want to let their kids use the public transportation. So thank you for that, building that confidence in the system. Thank you for all your work, and just continue talking to community. I think it's really important. Thank you.
So, thank you. So, just a comment and a question. I just want to applaud your work. I drive the Expo line at least twice a day. I'm very familiar with the task force, obviously. And a little over a year ago, it became a frequent target for cell phone theft there. And since your presence and the things you've put in place, that's gone down to zero. So really appreciate that effort of you and Southwest and the Special Problems Unit that was assigned. I do want to ask Officer Morales, did I hear cop on a rooftop? Can you explain that to me?
Yes, sir. So it was at the Dunkin' Donuts on 7th and Metro, and it basically opened up a door for community members to come over, have a donut, speak with cops, similar to Coffee with the Cop, but it was just a creative stance on trying to get engagement and trying to get fundraising for the Special Olympics. So it was just a kind of creative, unique idea that we
So
drew
we're
up.
not on any rooftops?
No, sir.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. So if there are no other comments or questions, I would move that we approve the department's report. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very
And
much.
Commissioner President, if I might, I just want to thank this team. This has been remarked, has been a marked departure and improvement in regards to our ability to interact with not just the operators, but the riding public, as well as MTA management. The taking on the red line, what had fallen to truly disrepair and levels of unsafety that shocked many Angelenos. Your work there was only complemented further by the engagement and by building communities of trust and reliance upon one another and working collectively for the safety of that line of everyone involved. So many agencies would have resorted to a hard line enforcement posture alone, and you did not, and you didn't fall prey to that. And the outcome has been remarkable with both the increase in ridership as well as increased levels of safety. I see the enthusiasm as well as commissioners do. I congratulate you for that commitment that you're making and for defining public transit safety in a way that all of us can be proud. Thank you for the presentation today.
Thank you. We'll move on to item agenda 5B, Department's report relative to non-categorical use of force investigations audit, and Captain Gilani. Morning, Captain. If you just introduce your personnel.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Captain Officer Galani. I am the Acting Commanding Officer for Audit Division, and I'm here to introduce Lieutenant Mark Gordado, Detective Eugene Bedola, and Police Performance Auditor Sergio Saiz, who will be talking about audit number 23-002, relative to non-categorical use of force investigations. Mark.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chief, Inspector General. The non-categorical use of force investigation audit was conducted by Audit Division with the purpose of determining whether or not department followed policies and procedures
with respect to proper oversight of use of force investigations, documentation of inconsistencies between body-worn video and related reports, and inclusion of the Watch Commander's insight. This audit covered 3 objectives. The department performed well in all 3 objectives with a compliance rate of 100%, respectively. Audit Division did meet with the Office of Operations, who is in general agreement with all the findings. Thank you. At this time, we avail of ourselves to any questions the board might have.
Thank you, sir. Any comments or questions from the report? Commissioner Kalanche? No? Okay. Commissioner Garcia? Vice President Shields?
I just had one question about kind of the scope of the audit. I see that it was compared to the 2018 audit because it had similar objectives, but not the 2020 audit. Can you talk about how you come about what objectives are kind of due to be audited in coming up with your report?
In the area of choosing objectives, we look at such topics as what is considered high risk, what topics that if not audited or looked at could lead to risk management issues, physical, financial, organizational liabilities, and that's how we prioritize our objectives, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, Sergeant or Lieutenant, also, thank you for your presentation. On the 2020 compliance, where we had 93 to 100%, this audit has 100%. So I think the nature of the question is the areas that we were falling at 93%, how are we doing? Because obviously we want 10 out of 10.
Right. We had 2020 specific objectives for 2020.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, and we'll go back and look at that to ensure that we didn't fashion this to avoid getting a perfect A.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, I would move that we approve the department's report. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll move on to item 5C on the agenda. And that's going to be the photo comparison technology audit. And Captain Gilani, you stay here.
Annual inspection reports had a compliance rate of 100%. Audit Division met with the audit entities who are in general agreement with the audit findings. And if I may address the 0%, because I know that may be a cause of concern off the bat. The objective was if they completed quarterly reports. R&I does generate quarterly reports of DMS users and submit them to Detective Bureau, but during the audit period, they were not submitting them, forwarding them to the concerned commanding officers, and they were not identifying users that were not in compliance with the requirements. We brought that to light, and we met with R&I, and they are taking steps to rectify this matter. They are now, they are going to combine monthly reports to inform both users and CO of noncompliance. And they will start generating quarterly review reports prescribed by the Office of the Chief of Police Special Order to be submitted to both Detective Bureau as well as the commanding officers. Thank you. If there are any questions.
Thank you. So Lieutenant, this is an annual audit?
It's not.
It's not.
No.
So the last time we did this was, does anyone know?
Yes. This is the first audit of this kind.
The first one. Okay. My concern, and you answered my question, was that we had, none of the quarterly reviews were performed during the audit period. And if it's a quarterly review, I was assuming it was at least 12 months. We missed 4 quarters, and I was just going to ask how that happened.
I believe if R&I is here today.
Nope.
When we did reach out to them, they said that they were under the impression that they were following policy and procedure because they were doing the quarterly reports, just not forwarding it to all the required entities. So bring it to light from here on out, they are going to ensure that they are doing so.
Okay, and so that's been addressed. And again, my concern is that to miss a quarter consecutively, repeatedly,
Yes.
I'm just concerned. But if you say that's been addressed, then I'll look forward to that being remedied and not happening in the next report.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Calanche?
I have a quick question, just so that I understand this correctly. On the item 1, what were the findings, like what specific things were not done that would not be in compliance? Like, what are some of the issues?
Thank you, ma'am, for the question. Yes, Objective 1 had a compliance rate of 73%, which dealt with, again, with the completion of requesting training and access requirements. Though it was a 73% compliance, all the requests were legitimate. However, what was omitted from the requests that failed the compliance were administrative errors only. Like they put the name of the detective or whoever's requesting, but not the rank, or it was very minor clerical issues, or they're missing formal requests of what type of training they're requesting. But we looked into it, and all the requests were legitimate requests for these.
So is just not filling out the forms right, or
Correct,
not?
exactly.
Okay, and then I saw, like, I think I'm looking at the right table, like Devonshire, like, had the most findings? And it says 5, I think I'm looking at the right one, right?
Last page. Yes, Devonshire appears to have the most with 5.
And then Rampart and Southwest. So your next steps, like having, like, say, these 3 divisions that have like the most, would you follow up and request, that they get trained, or what do we do once we have these findings?
Well, we make the recommendations of what we feel should be addressed, and they respond with what they're going to implement. In this case, they're going to send training and reminders of how to complete the proper request for the form.
So there is like a kind of closing the loop and
Yes.
follow up?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Calanche. Vice President Shields?
Thank you. And the way I read this audit is that, there were no violations in terms of no one is improperly accessing the photo comparison technology that shouldn't be accessing it, correct?
Exactly, man. That's something we specifically looked at.
And so there appears to be some of the technical administrative errors with certain codes not being designated properly. And I saw there was a recommendation, I believe, by the Office of Operations that the department policy be updated to reflect the current LACRIS requirements. Chief, do you know if that is happening or in the works?
It's in the works.
Okay.
Yes.
I would, when I reviewed this and saw that the quarterly reports were missing, when I looked at the objective of the quarterly reports, it looked to be somewhat redundant of what they were already doing, but on a monthly basis, they were ensuring every month that anyone who no longer should have access to the database, that they were not given access to the database. So they were doing that on a monthly basis. And, you know, is there a way for when the department's looking at the policy to just see whether there's any, you know, potential unnecessary burdens on the?
It is. It's a great observation. And while we're cleaning up this other language, it's an opportunity for us to clean up the quarterly audit. What happened, as you saw from the records identification report, each office, anyone who had a discrepancy were required to provide a response, and it's included in your package. You know, so the users who had errors are reminded and follow up to ensure that they're compliant. But this is an area also that we should just clean up the bureaucracy. We should either have we want monthly, because this is important that people remain Corey compliant and that they only be registered users with the proper training, but the quarterly makes it redundant. They were doing it anyways, but they were doing it by not sending it through in a manner that was that met the audit standard. It was being sent to, I think, Detective Bureau instead of being sent to the area COs involved. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's a bureaucratic gotcha.
Thank you, Chief. That's exactly what I was getting to, so I'm glad that the department's looking at that. And given kind of the shorter manpower that we have in the department, the more we're able to identify things that are just redundant bureaucracy that isn't actually furthering the mission. I'm happy to see those coming to the commission for a relook. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Garcia?
No, thank you.
No questions? If there are no other questions or comments, I would move that we approve the department's report. Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bring it down up here.
We'll move on to agenda item 5D, handling of mentally ill audit. And Captain Galani, stay right there. And if you would introduce everyone else.
Good morning again. To my right is Adama Franklin. She was the police performance auditor, the project manager for this mentally ill audit. The handling of the mentally ill audit was conducted by Audit Division with the purpose of determining whether or not department followed policies and procedures with respect to proper disposition calls for service involving the mentally ill and proper documentation of procedure as directed by policy. This audit covered 3 objectives. While the department performed well in Objective 1 with a compliance rate of 94%, the department's rate of compliance Objective 2 was 0, which dealt with documenting the detainment advisement given to a subject being taken into custody for a suspected mental illness on the personnel's computer aid dispatch, referred to as a CAD report, or daily field activity report, commonly referred to as a DFAR. Objective 3's compliance rate was 70%, which dealt with documenting the contact with MEU by including the MEU report number in the personnel's CAD report, or DFAR. Audit Division did meet with Detective Bureau and Office Operations, who are in general agreement with the audit findings. And again, before I conclude my opening statement, I would like to address Objective 2's 0 compliance rate issue. Current policy directs personnel to document a detainment advisement on their CAD report or DFAR. Though they did not document the advisement on their CAD or DFAR that detainment advisement was given, they did document the advisement on Form MH302, which is a required application for assessment medical form used by the medical facilities. So in short, these facilities will not accept a subject for evaluation if the form is incomplete. And one of the requirements of this form is to document if an advisement was given. Noting the redundancy in the documentation requirement as a result of this audit, the Audit Division recommended to remove the requirement to document the advisement on the officer's CAD or DFAR, only requiring it on a medical application form, as it is mandatory. Currently, the Office of Constitutional Police and Policy is actively drafting policy to implement this change. Thank you, and at this time, we avail ourselves for any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners? No? No? Commissioner Calante?
Are there any implications for not, if they don't enter into the CAD, are there any like concerns? Like does it lead to like not collection of certain data, or it's just truly like redundancy?
It is a redundant issue, ma'am, because if we were to audit or we wanted to verify that the officers were doing it right, it would show up on that medical form anyways. So by removing that, as the commissioner mentioned before, it's, with the shortest personnel, it's one less burden, and there's still an accountability cover for it with that county medical form.
Okay. And then can you talk a little bit more about the 70% on objective 3?
Yes, so Objective 3 was documenting their request or contacting MEU on their CAT or DFAR report. Just basically, when we looked at the audit, we looked at all the calls for service cleared with that dealt with mental evaluation unit, and we had a sampling size of 199, and out of that, that's where you got 70% of those they actually documented on their CAD report. We did meet with the mental evaluation unit, and they are sending out training and reminders to ensure that it actually is documented on the CAD and DFAR when they do have contact with MEU.
They weren't documenting it, that they had contact with MEU. Was there any other place that they were documenting it?
No.
So the only way we would know is like if MEU is, if they themselves are documenting that they had contact with.
Or if there was any kind of related written reports completed, it would be an additional there as well.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I move that we approve the department's report. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to the final regular agenda item, item 5E, the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Technology Report. And we have Captain Curtin. Captain Espinoza. Captain Williams. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Captain Anthony Espinoza, Commanding Officer of Innovation Management Division, and I will be representing the Automated License Plate Reader Technologies. And with me, I have two of my peers, and they will introduce themselves and address which technologies they represent.
Good morning. My name is Laura Curtin. I am currently the Commanding Officer of Major Crimes Division, and I will be addressing any questions related to cobwebs.
And good morning, Commissioners, Chief. Captain Scott Williams, Commanding Officer, Robbery Homicide Division, and I'll be answering questions related to Wooster and Scope Now.
Do you want?
Oh. Yes, okay. My apologies. So the framework of the annual report is to go over the technologies that the department believes meets the standard of the comprehensive technology report. We've already addressed the four technologies that we will be speaking to today. The main purpose is to show the community, to show the commission that we're following department procedures regarding access, use, and storage of the data. And in our report, we found that the department with these divisions are following those guidelines.
And just to further expand on that, in 2022, during much consideration about the reforms for criminal justice systems and policing, the issues of the use of technology was brought before this commission, and the commission took a leadership position of asking and requiring the department to catalog each of the technologies, and you're seeing representation today from some of those technologies, not all of them. But in that annual report, not just to catalog them, but actual use, as well as the expense, the cost for procurement, ongoing costs for maintenance, and then the transparency of just reporting out to the public how these are actually being used and how they conform to the law. So this is an annual report that's before you today. We're focusing on 3 particular areas, but in reality, the unmanned aerial systems and others constitute technology that is part of the annual update and is included in this report.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioners, are any questions or comments? Commissioner Calante.
I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. So this is all, I would say, fairly new to me, right? So I don't have anything to compare it to, basically. So I'm wondering, of the queries and the hits and how we, the number of times these tools are used, like how do we compare to other departments? I mean, I don't know if you have that data, but it's hard to say wow, this is great or not great when it's hard to, understand it in a larger context, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As far as the platforms that we utilize, each end user, that is time-stamped. So I cannot comment on what other agencies do or how often they do it. But Cobwebs for Los Angeles Police Department, we only have 6 users, 3 for Robbery Homicide Division and 3 for Major Crimes Division. Both of these divisions are very highly specialized, and we investigate highly public investigations such as murders, robberies, bombings, anything like that. So that's why we scrutinize it very, very much. So there's oversight with it. We do internal audits. We in no way attempt to circumvent the law, and we adhere to the Fourth Amendment. If anything goes to the point where it's no longer publicly available, then a search warrant is authored.
And Commissioner,
Obtain additional information.
and Commissioner, so more broadly, this is an emerging area of policing. Technology reports to this level of detail is something that we're leading from the front. San Diego just recently adopted a technology program, and actually they're making adjustments to it because they found that it was too detailed and it was actually hampering some of their efficiencies, and they've asked the council, and I believe they obtained their support to back away some of the oversight. Critical important to this is any new technology has to be brought before this commission to adopt. And Chief McMahon is here today, and perhaps he can address some of these more broader discussions of why this technology report exists, its utility. There is a benchmarking problem here because we don't get to see what other agencies are doing, except in participation in peer-to-peer conversations. But there's not like in something as critical as use of force, for instance, officer-involved shootings. As a profession, we're still struggling to get 17,000 agencies to report. So technology has similar challenges as getting other agencies to share. How do you use it? How do you gauge effectiveness? And how do we benchmark our performance with it? Chief McMahon.
Yeah, John McMahon, IT. Thanks, Chief, for the opportunity. I just want to put a little bit more context on what this report really also represents. It's essentially a report to communicate to the commission, to the public, the new technology that the department comes in contact with and ultimately employs. And it was, on its inception, a review of all technology that was used looking back. So each year, this report comes in front of you to essentially communicate what's been being used and what's been acquired throughout the year after Board of Police Commissioner approval. It focuses on 2 primary areas. Any technologies that acquire data in publicly accessible places in the aggregate. That's something of community interest. And any technology that accesses information in a private area. So those are the two things that any technology that's acquired that meets those two criteria is something that's presented to the Board of Police Commissioners to be approved before it's actually put in place by the department. One set of technology that's not used or that doesn't come before the Police Commission is anything that's used or approved by a court order.
I guess then, because we are somewhat leading in this area, maybe down the road, we'll be able to see like year to year. Just, I'm trying to figure out like, how do we audit this, right? When we're kind of leading these efforts, right? Or the use of this technology. So all we have is data, but then in a context of like what, right? So.
I think Captain Williams can respond to that.
Yeah, so this is the first year, we're coming up, we've just ended the first year of acquiring some of this technology. And so the audit process is underway specifically for technologies like Wooster and Scope now, because we've got a full year's worth of data now. So Special Order 11 dictates that our department administrator, who works for me under RHD, will conduct an audit similar to a Corey audit, right? We want to make sure that the officers or those people who access the system had a need to know and a right to know that information. We've actually worked with the providers to ensure that every time anybody does a query in the system, that there's a case number that's attached to it so that we can verify that there is a legitimate reason for them to access the database. And on top of that, I mean, the numbers of licenses that the department has for each of these technologies is very, very limited at this point. And so we only have a very small number of individuals who can even access the databases.
And if I may add, part of the process before the end user in Captain Williams' case from robbery homicide, if they want to acquire a technology, there's a process that ultimately goes through Innovation Management Division up to Information Technology Bureau, and we will vet that technology before it even gets through the review process. And one of the things that we definitely look at is a primary factor is the auditing trails of the software itself. If the technology does not have robust auditing trails that we can see who accessed it, when they accessed it, where they accessed it from, how often, all those things must be the capability of the technology so that when that audit is put forward, we write down to every detail to the keystroke that's pressed by the individual user.
Thank you. Vice President Shields.
Thank you. Thank you for the report and being here to answer questions. I think, one thing that I thought was interesting in the report is that the private sector has a lot of these technologies, and they are not issuing similar reports of how many queries they are doing on a regular basis. So the fact that we are kind of trying to be as transparent as possible, I think is an important part of this. And providing tools that are in the private sector to law enforcement makes sense to me. A couple of questions I had was whether, some of these tools seem to be like investigative databases or search engines, and some seem to potentially overlap. Like, how much of an analysis is being done as to, are we paying for duplicative technology? And is there a way that, who's analyzing what is the best use of the resources that the department has?
Yeah, right. So we do that. I know in terms of Wooster and Scope now, they look at two different sources. They may come back to similar results, but they're looking at two different sources of information to find that data. And so again, since our licenses are very limited at this point, there is definitely a cost-benefit analysis that our administrator goes through during the audit process to determine whether or not the technologies are both efficient and useful to investigators, and whether we want to use the limited money that we have to reinvest in those resources.
And then, so each different platform or software draws from different areas, and they give a bit different return. So it's always better to have more information and then it points us in the right direction. We vet that information, and then our investigators or detectives do an inquiry. And then if it reaches the level where it goes past that into the private arena where we've identified a suspect, then we will write a search warrant to obtain additional information.
Thank you. That's helpful to know, and I thought the report also was helpful to indicate, how many licenses are in existence, that this isn't something that is being done on a widespread, dragnet type of approach. So I appreciated that. And I saw that for some of the technology, the department had grants covering the expenses there. Is this just a kind of one-time grant? Is this something that will then roll on to the department budget? And are there other grants that are being explored to cover the expense of some of this emerging technology?
Yeah, Commissioner, I'll take that. Most of these software packages that we deal with are software as a service subscription licenses that carry over year after year. If it's something that is covered by the grant and it runs out, it will make its way into the department budget to be funded. If not, it'll be picked up by another grant and just rolls over continuously. And just to add to a little bit to your previous question, the Information Technology Bureau ultimately writes the checks for all these licenses, and so we carefully review each of those subscriptions because in reality, you ask a very legitimate question. When it comes to publicly available information, which is really what we're talking about, information that's not subject to a court order, we're really talking about primarily social media scrubbers of a different type or another, and although they all do that, each of the licenses that we have or each of the packages that we have are carefully reviewed to ensure that they provide a unique service to the end user that's asking for it. Are there some duplicative areas? Yes, there are. But each one of these licenses that these users use offers something very specific that is compelling for us to approve the license.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia.
Yeah, question regarding cost. So, for example, page 20, point number 5, cost and then cost benefit. So I see the cost. Can you share a little bit more about the cost benefit portion of it, and do we have enough data to formulate that, or do we just need more time to really evaluate what is the cost benefit?
Well, I would say that each technology is different when it comes to cost and the value that it brings to the organization. Excuse me. As far as it goes with ALPR technology, I would say the cost benefits are in line. We have a $407,000 a year contract for vigilant ALPR systems. And what that gives is the investigators the tools to dive deep into a software to help them solve cases faster rather than doing manual research or queries. It also gives us hardware for our department vehicles to put ALPR systems on those, as well as fixed pole cameras. So when it comes to ALPR technology, I would say that the value is there in that we've had 57 million reads thus far this year, and we've had 47,000 hits, which refers to wanted vehicles, those folks that have gone missing, whether it's an amber, feather, or silver alert. It notifies our officers sooner than later that there's a vehicle in the area that is wanted with one of those incidents, rather than the vehicle going past and you may miss that, or having to do a manual query. So for ALPR technology, I would say that yes, our cost analysis.
And Captain Williams, can you talk about Wooster, or just when we're talking about drilling through hand searches of the internet, what we're talking about?
Yeah, right. So, so technologies like Wooster and Scope now, they aggregate data that's publicly available, right? And so, in order to do what these technologies allow an investigator to do in a very short period of time, I mean, it would take tens of investigators, on a full-time basis to come up with the same amount of data. So when you're looking at a cost-benefit analysis, again, paying salary versus, paying the license fee for something that happens instantaneously. We've determined that clearly for the benefit of the city, that this is the way to go.
So So the question is more really, can we quantify that? I understand it and I believe it, but is there any data to quantify the people, hours that have been saved as a result of this, the potential crime reduction as a result of this, ultimately the cost-benefit analysis of it?
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm not aware of any study that's taken particular use cases in to see how much time has been saved. I think anecdotally, everybody up at the table here will say it just saves thousands of hours of investigators' time. Oftentimes, a return from any of one of these companies that we're speaking of will give you a stack of information that takes an expert hours upon hours to manually go through each page, decipher it, make sense out of it. And a lot of these packages that you're hearing about will do that programmatically and give them the report that the investigators actually need in real time, minutes versus hours. I can also tell you that we look at the use of each of these packages, and if they're not being used, we have a history of cutting programs that are not being used. Software technology is only good if it's being used. And there's been more than a few occasions where we've looked at multi-million-dollar software packages and discovered, you know what, this may be good, but we're not using it. When we're not using it because it's either not user-friendly or the investigators have moved on something more comfortable with them, but it's ultimately the use. If it's not being used, that's something that will not get funded in the next round.
Yeah, if possible, I'd like to be able to someday see us being able to capture the savings there so that we can look at data and say this is not an expense, but an investment in the department. That's the point. Thank you.
So what we can come back to you with is, for instance, RHD has the ability to look at some recent cases in the last 6 months and can give you clear examples about the sifting through the ocean of bits and pieces that this allows to be funneled into, top 5 searches. And really, it's like cell tower dumps. For instance, there's software that takes tens of thousands of cell numbers and has solved homicides by identifying, and I'll say the most recent case of 4 homicides involving homeless. The use of technology that allowed us to sift through, that was court approved, court ordered, supervised, sift through literally tens of thousands of cell numbers and demonstrate a connectivity that led back to the identity of the individual responsible for those 4 homicides. Hand searching that would have been impossible. It'd be literally like trying to count the number of fish in the ocean. And so in this instance, I think best is to give you some anecdotal examples without burdening people with how much hours you saved on this. I would rather take 5 cases that they've been involved with, 5 cases from major crimes, and give you a report that talks about, we'll do confidentiality if there's we're not going to jeopardize any current investigation, but investigations that are being prosecuted, we can identify, because all of this also is demonstrated before the court. There's nothing here in this technology that's not brought before the court as to tips and leads and clues of how we solve these cases. But that probably might be the best offering rather than a time motion study, just because of the enormity of just that task. That would actually eat any savings that we got.
So, Chief, I think you may have answered this, but I think with regards to the public, when we think about technology, and again, thank you for all the incredible work you're doing, it might be useful to say in layman's terms that because we had this technology, we put 5 more people in the field because we didn't have to manually search it because we didn't need them. Those are the kinds of things that I think if we could provide in the way of some kind of follow-up to Commissioner Garcia's question with regards to hours saved, labor saved, people returning to the field because you need less personnel, that might be useful. To follow up on Vice President Shields' comment, I'm always curious about, well, you know how technology is. If you take it from the store today, it's obsolete tomorrow. So my concern again is redundancy. While technologically speaking, that's great, but at some point, do we have 2 or 3 systems doing the same thing? I would love to see a Venn diagram, if you will, of what covers what and how much overlap there is. While I appreciate the overlap, do you get to a point, and it's a hypothetical question right now, but do you get to a point where you decide, I'll use cobwebs as an example. Cobwebs covering so much of this part of another technology that we don't need the other technology anymore? And when are those decisions made? What threshold do you have to reach to decide, as you said earlier, we removed them if they're not being used enough? So again, it's a comment question, but I'm just curious about how much redundancy do we need? Because I would imagine someone's building something new every day, and we want the best, but do we need it because of the things that we already have?
Yeah, so if I understand your ask, President, is a breakdown of what our investments do, what the overlap is. I can tell you that there is redundancy, there is overlap, but each package that we purchase does offer a unique use to that end user. So let's say we had 5 or 6 categories in a table. You may see a series of 3, sometimes maybe even 4 that do something very similar to something else. But there's that last little category that's unique to that package that is specific to what robbery homicide does versus what major crimes does. But I'm fairly confident that, and I'm more than fairly confident that there's not any particular package that we currently have that does everything the same, that we're paying for 2 packages that do the exact same thing.
But we can, I think it'd be a good report for special operations because they oversee the application through Detective Bureau and CTSOB, the application both for the specialized detectives and investigators as well as the geographic areas to give you a visual representation of just kind of the interplay. It's people, places, and things is what we're talking about here. And I will tell you, for instance, we had a major software service agreement that we walked away from because of more than, what was that, $1.8 million that we were paying for 1.9 for a data aggregator that we found existing programs could map together, and the use of the system was underutilized because of its level of sophistication. And so I won't call that company out publicly because I don't want to cause anybody any discomfort on that, but that kind of willowing out is an expectation and is something that is exercised in an ongoing fashion.
And to add to that, sir, when we look at new technologies, we actually bring in users from all over the department who may have a unique system that they're using and present them with this new option to see if it does create that overlap. If it does, then to Chief Moore and Chief McMahon's point, we can step away from one and transition to the other. So we're constantly looking, as you said, for the newest and greatest things to take the place of an existing technology.
Thank you. So with that, I would move that we approve the department's report. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for your report. The commission will now adjourn into closed session. Thank you.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 6A in accordance with Government Code 54957.
The commission has completed closed session and will have a report out by the executive director, Mr. Tefang.
Item 6A1, K-9 contact number 007-23. Commission on a 3-0 vote adopted the recommendations of the Chief of Police, which were K-9 deployment consistent with established criteria, K-9 contact consistent with established criteria, post K-9 contact procedures consistent with established criteria. Item 6A2, law enforcement related injury number 008-23. Commission on a 3-0 vote adopted the recommendations of the Chief of Police, which were tactics, tactical debrief, 4 police officer 2s, non-lethal use of force and policy, 4 police officer 2s. Item 6B1 adjudicated. That concludes the report out.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.